Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're all well, you amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's Friday. We made it. We made it to the end of the week. And what a week it's been. But like I say, you're looking absolutely amazing. And what we're going to do here is we know that we have in the next few days, the 29th, as I was corrected, the 29th, we have the change of venue here and for Bryan Kohberger in the Idaho 4 case. And we have just seen, what is it, a 23-page document that is basically the state's objection to a change of venue. Now, we knew that would happen. We knew what to be expected. I do believe that there's potentially ways to get around it so that he could still receive, well, if it's possible at all, to receive a fairer trial. But it's whether that can be done adequately enough, and that is to potentially get a jury from elsewhere and bring it into Latah County. Let me know down below what you think about that idea. Is that kind of a happy medium? But some of us were a little bit upset about the verbiage used in the documentation. It went on to almost say that his request was inconvenient. Inconvenient. Now, let's not make no bones about it. They've got a long way to go before they prove that Bryan Kohberger is guilty of this crime. And in fact, some may argue, myself included, is that they have not only failed to prove guilt at this stage, but they've failed to prove that him even sitting in court, waiting and sitting in Latah County, waiting for a trial, is unjust at present. But anyway, let's get into it as we look at kind of the media's stance on where we are at this point and see what their take is on it in comparison to ours. And are we seeing a continuous to the bias that is out there? Some of this is actually quite amusing. So here we have it. Look. So the latest pre-trial developments in the case of Idaho quadruple murder suspect Bryan Kohberger. It says the defense team for Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students in their off-campus home in 2022, has requested to move the case out of town, saying in a recent memorandum he can't receive a fair trial in Latah County because of inflammatory publicity. And before I go on, let me just thank the person who sent me this article, the link to this article. It's not one that I can generally access, so I had to jump through a few hoops. But if it hadn't have been sent to me, I certainly wouldn't have seen it. But by the end of it, you'll see it is a very good article. Saying in a recent memorandum he can't receive a fair trial in Latah County because of inflammatory publicity, which I think we can all agree with that. Whatever side of the fence you sit on, you can agree with that. And what I do find frustrating is the comments. There's even comments at the end of this, when people get to leave a comment on it, and people are saying it don't matter where it's held. It don't matter where it's held. The families just need justice. Get on with it already. And this mentality of, you're just delaying inevitability is indicative of the severe bias that is in the community. And that isn't justice. That's just a witch hunt. But anyway, I digress. But prosecutors rejected that argument in a filing Tuesday, saying the court could put in place other measures to ensure a fair trial. Now, I don't think that they can state that they can ensure a fair trial, but they can certainly put in remedial measures to assist the potential towards a fair trial. I believe that's fair. I don't think that they can, in anything around this case, if this case is happening in Idaho at all, that they can ensure a fair trial. I think that's a stretch. The filings are the latest pre-trial developments in Kohberger's quadruple murder trial, which is set to begin in June 2025. It's been a long and winding road since the 4 students, Kaylee Goncalves, Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, and Madison Mogen, were fatally stabbed in the overnight hours of November 13th, 2022, at a home just off the school's main campus in Moscow, Idaho. Look at that, me getting all their names pronounced correctly. Judge John Judge. Kohberger, a Washington State University graduate student in criminology, was arrested in the killings on December 30th, 2022, in his home state of Pennsylvania. A not guilty plea was entered on his behalf in May 2023, and his attorneys have indicated the 29-year-old intends to present an alibi as part of his defense. Prosecutors have said they will seek the death penalty. The progression of the case has been slowed by a series of pre-trial motions and hearings that have frustrated the family of one of the victims, as well as the judge overseeing the case. We call him Judge John Judge. Judgy McJudgeson and his friend Bad Santa. The hearings largely fall into a few different buckets. One relates to the defense attorney's access to evidence, particularly how the prosecution used investigative genetic genealogy in building the case. A second set of hearings concerns Kohberger's proposed alibi for his innocence. Third, there have been a number of hearings related to a gag order that restricts what parties can publicly say about the case. Here's a timeline of some of the notable pre-trial developments and decisions so far. So June 9th, the coalition of media organisations and the family of a murder victim came to court to challenge the gag order placed on the parties in the case. On the 23rd, Latah County Judge John Judge denied both requests but issued a revised gag order that allows the parties to discuss topics that do not have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing or otherwise influencing the outcome of the case. But as a byproduct of the gag order, it has led to huge hysteria online, mass media propagation of falsities that have led to huge bias in the community that will inevitably lead to Bryan Kohberger being judged and executed prior to the trial in people's minds, at the very least. And I think that that is a fair assumption. Let me know down below what you think. August 2nd, Kohberger's attorney said they would use an alibi defense but couldn't pin down their client's specific location on the night of the killings because he was driving during the late night and early morning hours. So again, this is not what many of the guilters are running around stating. They're saying that they claim that Bryan Kohberger was at Wawawi Park stargazing on the night of this crime. No, you fucking morons. That's not what was said. His alibi has always been the same, and like I've stated from the beginning over and over and over again, this is very likely why Bryan Kohberger, even if he's innocent, is sitting where he is today. Because he would have told them that he was driving about. I was driving about. Do you have anyone who can clarify, confirm where you were, corroborate your alibi? No, I don't. All right. So we've got this guy who was apparently driving around somewhere around this area, and he's got no witnesses, no one to help him. Right. There you go. Bang. Done. Again, he was not stating at any point that on the night in question he was stargazing at Wawawi Park. It was stated that Bryan Kohberger was a night owl, and in order to offer some credence to that, it was stated about how he had frequented the Wawawi Park area for the purpose of hiking, for, strolls and stargazing. He was just a night owl, and this has been corroborated over and over and over again by multiple people who knew Bryan Kohberger. There we go. Mr. Kohberger was not claiming to be at a specific location at a specific time. Get it through your thick numbskull heads. There is not a specific witness to say precisely where Mr. Kohberger was at each moment of the hours of the attacks, his attorney said in a court filing, which many of us could be in exactly the same point. Do you think that Bryan Kohberger was the only person in the world who on the night this happened wouldn't be able to corroborate exactly where they was because they are on their own driving about somewhere? Do you know what I mean? Use your heads. October 26th, the judge denied a request to dismiss the grand jury indictment after the defense argued there was an error in the grand jury instructions, which is referencing the way in which they would judge the indictment. Is it beyond a reasonable doubt? Is it, and that argument was, I think that was an error, really, on behalf of the defence. The ruling is the ruling. It is what it is. Many have joked about the fact that they can indict a jam sandwich, which is pretty much where that argument comes from. It doesn't need to be beyond a reasonable doubt, just needs to be a probable cause, and yeah, it is what it is. The judge denied a second motion to dismiss on December 18th the indictment after the defence argued prosecutors failed to comply fully with state rules on jury selection and the jury questionnaire. February 28th, defence attorney Nancy Taylor asked the court to allow 3 defence experts and others to view the investigative genetic genealogy, evidence which has now been sealed. To understand the full timeline of how police began to focus on Bryan Kohberger, which has been a bone of contention for many. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Genetic genealogy is a practice that blends DNA analysis in the lab with genealogical research, such as tracing a person's family tree. In this case, investigators found a single source of male DNA on the button snap of a leather knife sheath left at the crime scene, according to a probable cause affidavit. Now, I think this statement where it says left at the crime scene, we don't know if it was left at the crime scene by the killer. Again, this is conditioning here, because we don't know if that knife sheath was there in the first place. We don't know who that belonged to. We've not had anything that's publicly come out to actually confirm what the murder weapon was. And in fact, as again I've said this previously, Kathy Mabbott, her statement was lead you to believe that there was more than one weapon, and the way in which this weapon was used, if indeed it was the K-bar knife that they claim it was, then the way in which the Kathy Mabbott explained the injuries indicative of someone who had skill beyond normality with respect of using that single weapon. That is my conclusion there. Almost military-esque style usage of it. Here we go. The judge initially declined to give the defense investigators extended access to the investigative genetic genealogy, saying he would rather the experts approved already to view the material just give justification for digging deeper. So the DNA issues have been going on for a long time. I think they've got to a point where that has just kind of fizzled out. The judge criticised Kohberger's defence attorney on April 4th, saying she commissioned phone surveys to potential jurors that could hinder Kohberger's ability to get a fair trial. This was the Dr. Edelman surveys. However, Taylor said the judge violated her client's right to due process by ordering a stop to the anonymous survey without hearing the defence's side first, which this was, I agree in this. At the end of the day, these are surveys that are done in other trials that they'd been done in Idaho previously as well. This wasn't alien to the area. And and this caused a delay. Obviously, they went on to be done, but it did delay things. Judge said in April he wants a hearing at least every month, noting the importance of cleaning up the legal proceedings. April 17th, 2024, Kohberger's defense lawyers filed a court document saying they plan to offer a cell phone tower and radio frequency expert to partially corroborate his proposed alibi. This was, of course, Cy Ray. That he was out driving west of Moscow on the night of the slayings. April 19th, the judge allowed surveys conducted with potential jurors to continue without modification after temporarily pausing them. April 29th, the prosecution asked the court to deny Kohberger the opportunity to add his alibi and to preclude anyone other than the defendant to testify as to his whereabouts. So this was an attempt to block Cy Ray. And the funny thing was, when Cy Ray, for those of you who didn't see, when Cy Ray was in there, they did not challenge Cy Ray once. In fact, that was the quietest I've seen them sit for every single hearing that we've had. They did not challenge him whatsoever, and I believe they didn't challenge him because they couldn't bullshit him. And I think if they'd have challenged him, he would have made them look stupid. Kohberger Kohberger's defense had asked for an upcoming evidentiary hearing with witnesses to be made public. This was on May 2nd, while the prosecution asked that it be sealed. The judge ruled that it will be closed to the public. After the hearing, the family of Goncalves, one of the victims, criticised the slow pace of the proceedings. This case is turning into a hamster wheel of motions, hearings, and delayed decisions, adding they were incredibly frustrated. Which, again, we get the fact that they're frustrated. Imagine how the families surrounding the Delphi case feel. This is, in all honesty, even though it feels like this is dragging out, it's actually not taken that long. I'm surprised that we've already got a date, in all honesty. May 23rd, Taylor, the defense attorney, questioned the Moscow police detective about the preparation of visual cell phone logs and methods for searching for certain videos. The testimony was related to 2 motions to compel prosecutors to share discovery with the defense, but the contents of the motions are sealed, so it was not clear what they were questioning. This is where it starts to get interesting. May 30th, the Moscow police detective leading the investigation and a defense expert in cell phone location data testified that the defense had not received some key evidence in the case. Corporal Brett Payne, the lead investigator on the case, testified he and other investigators collected thousands of hours of video surveillance as they tried to locate a white Hyundai Elantra connected to the suspect. The videos are saved on various thumb drives, but there is no central inventory of the videos, he testified. He also said investigators did not see on any of the videos the Elantra going south from Moscow towards Pullman, Washington, in the early morning hours after the killings. Did you hear what I just said? The probable cause affidavit used in the case alleges Bryan Kohberger drove south towards Pullman after he committed the 4 killings. So just in that section there, we are hearing a contradiction in what the lead investigator is saying versus what was put in the probable cause affidavit. Ray, an expert on cell phone geolocation data, testified that he has not been provided the underlying AT&T source data and list of nearby cell towers that was used by detectives to create a map of Kohberger's movements with his cell phone. Based on the data he had received, he believes some statements in the records were not accurate, and he said the missing data could be helpful to the defense. This here, what we've spoken about, some of this data includes, to try and simplify this, it is records that show the time taken for the signal to travel between the phone and the tower, which by this having this data, it can offer a much more accurate representation of where Bryan Kohberger was. So it's very important to have that, because without that information, you can almost say, well, he could have been here, take our word for it. But with that data, that it becomes more difficult for them to kind of muddy the waters with his location. So, Ray has said that data should be here for you in order for you to be able to say he travelled here, this direction, here, and here. You need this information, because without it, you're just guessing that that's the case. That's it in a nutshell. Because of the piecemealing of the data, because of the missing data, because of data that I'm reviewing that is incredibly inaccurate, everything that is missing is absolutely to the benefit of the defense right now, he said. June 7th, after previously restricting who had access to the investigative genetic genealogy, the judge ruled to allow unnamed defense investigators to view the material. I believe this was Bigger Barlow and Co. June 27th, the parties set a trial date of June 2nd, 2025. Judge set aside about 3 months for the trial, including 2 weeks for jury selection, 8 weeks for the trial, and 2 weeks for potential post-conviction hearings and sentencing. This is a great step. to set these deadlines and hearings so that we can move through this, he said. July 22nd, Kohberger's defense team filed a memorandum in support of moving the case out of Latah County, saying he can't receive a fair trial there because of the extensive publicity that is ongoing and inflammatory, and the defense suggested the trial be moved to Ada County, which includes Boise, which is 300 miles south. A hearing to discuss the change of venue is set for August 29th. I am looking to stream that here. August 13th, the prosecutors objected to the defense team's change of venue motion, arguing the defense failed to prove that Kohberger would not receive a fair trial in the county. The court should deny defendants' motion and instead focus on crafting remedial measures to ensure that the fair and impartial jury can be seated in Latah County, the prosecution argued. So that is where we are in a nutshell right up to now. There's a lot to go through there, but that kind of puts us in a place where that's what's happened. That's where we are. We've now got the change of venue hearing that's just round the corner, and will dictate what's going to happen from here going forward. Again, as a lot of you know, I'm someone who has yet to be convinced that Bryan Kohberger is the person who did this, but I am open-minded to allow in the trial for them to prove. My concern is what we are consistently seeing is failings, even at this stage, to prove that Bryan Kohberger should be sitting here waiting trial. They can't. They've literally stating that they don't have what they claim to have in the very documentation that put Bryan Kohberger where he is today. Think about that, especially if you're a guilder. Anyway, love you all. This is video 2 of 3, and I will catch you all in the next one.